Well, hello there, the internet, and welcome to another edition of the Breakfast Club with Got That Funk. I'd like to thank you for joining me. And of course, Happy New Year, one and all. I hope that your 2019 is interesting, prosperous, and joyful. I wanted to do a video response to yesterday's video on the Breakfast Club, which is from our guest host, Brock Lawley. He titled that Politics for Adults, and it covered an awful lot of ground. It's about 17 or 18 minutes long. So I won't be able to address every single point in this video because I don't want to make a video that's that long. And I tried earlier tonight to take Brock's video and carve it up and then edit my little bits in between. But that didn't end up working. My video editor crashed and I lost the whole thing. So I almost threw my computer across the room. Anyway, so here I am to do this one off the cuff and just based on the memory of what I've just been through with Brock's video. Anyway, right, so first of all, Brock talks about the current government shutdown, which is over a week old now. I guess it's about a week and a half old. And a week or so before the government shutdown, famously, Donald Trump decided that he was going to take responsibility for shutting down the government if the Democrats refused to give him explicit border funding for the wall. There have been bills sent to the president, with money for border security, but nothing specifically for the wall. And because that's the case, Trump threw them back to Congress, and now we're closed. And Trump said he would take responsibility. And the partisanship, insofar as it is a problem over this issue, doesn't come down to who takes responsibility. It's interesting to me because obviously beforehand, Trump did say explicitly he would proudly take responsibility for it. And then the minute the government shut down, he was trying to blame Chuck Schumer, which I find hilarious and, weak, pathetic, frankly. Now, the funding for the wall is extremely problematic, and I find it incredibly disingenuous for anybody who's a Trump supporter or who wants a wall between Mexico and the United States to try to pretend that Trump didn't sell it to you based on the idea that Mexico was going to pay for it. And if you were one of those people who thought it was kind of cool that Mexico was going to pay for the wall, how dare you expect American taxpayers to pay for it? What the fuck? What makes you even think, why should we dig into our pockets at all? Pelosi and Schumer offered Trump like $1.3 billion toward funding for a physical barrier between the two countries. But Trump wants $5 billion, and so he threw his fucking toys out of the pram and said, no, I'm not going to sign it. So, and people saying, oh, the Democrats don't want to compromise. They don't want to compromise. Well, $1.3 billion is a compromise when you should be offering nothing. Trump said Mexico was going to pay for the wall. So, spare me with your whole partisanship and shit like that. You should be partisan. You should stand up for your position if you believe your position is right. I already think the Democratic congressmen and women who offered $1.3 billion offered too much. That is a compromise. $1.3 billion is not a small amount of money. Oh my God, it really bothers me that we're talking in terms of like billions now, as if it's pocket change. It's not. That's thousands and thousands of people's taxes, going to something which, frankly, I think is a folly. But B, like I say, again, it is a compromise offer. Trump wouldn't take it because Trump wants what Trump wants, or he's, like I say, going to throw his toys out of the pram and expect to get his way because that's what's happened to him his entire life. So yeah, anyway, that's what I wanted to say about partisanship. Brock also said toward the beginning of his video that he finds it difficult to have an honest conversation with people on the left because, in part, they're in denial about what happened in 2016 and they want to, blame Russia for Trump being the president and all this kind of stuff. And, I'm going to avoid thinking that that's disingenuous and take on that maybe Brock actually thinks these things. Because to me, it's kind of obvious that, there has been a lot of soul searching on the left. And frankly, I think the establishment and a lot of the online discussion has gone the wrong way with what went wrong in 2016. Because from my point of view and from a lot of people, on the more left-turn side of politics, feel that Hillary Clinton was the primary reason Donald Trump won the election. That's just how I feel. And I feel that Hillary came with the baggage of from when she was first lady, of a lot of people just not liking Hillary. There were so many people who just couldn't stomach Hillary. And from my point of view, the statistics speak for themselves. 9% of registered Democrats voted for Trump. that 9%. So people want to blame, like Jill Stein or whoever else or Bernie, for drawing votes away, people who are saying, Bernie or bust, that kind of thing, from drawing votes away from Hillary. Hillary wasn't going to get those votes anyway. If someone voted for Jill Stein, I very much doubt that if Jill Stein wasn't running, that person would have voted for Hillary. They probably just wouldn't have voted. And you know what? If the people who voted for Trump, who were Democrats, didn't feel so strongly against Hillary, that if they just decided, oh, you know what, I can't vote for Hillary, but they wanted to make sure she didn't win, so they voted for Trump. That's how strongly that 9% felt. So that's how I see the 2016 election. That's where I put the blame. I put the blame on the Democratic voters who did vote for Trump. And to a pretty large degree, I wouldn't be surprised if an awful lot of those turned out to be in the 3 states that Brock mentioned in his video, which I think was Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, which Hillary should have carried. I mean, certainly Wisconsin and Michigan, you might expect not necessarily to go to the Democrat in the race, but it would be less surprising, put it that way. And the fact that Hillary didn't even go, I think, to Wisconsin at all is shocking. And of course, in Michigan, during the primary, Bernie won Michigan over Hillary. And it was really funny then because the pundit said he had less than a 1% chance of winning the state, and he turned out to win it. So there is that. Later on in the beginning of the video, Brock talked about how he finds it amusing how people on the left are just so bent on being anti-Trump that they will, even become war hawks when Trump, announces that he wants to, for example, withdraw his troops from Syria and draw down half the troops from Afghanistan. I'm not saying there's not people on the left who have been hawkish about this. I'm not one of them. I never have been. I'm all about peace. I am all about the United States not being interventionist when it comes to other countries' sovereignty. Countries who have never attacked us shouldn't have our troops there in the first place, and that includes Syria. Now, people can say, oh, ISIS is in Syria, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine, whatever. There's an awful lot of politics going on in Syria that you couldn't even cover in a half-an-hour-long video. So I'm not really going to drop it on Syria right now. I will just say that we shouldn't have had troops there in the first place. That's my opinion. It's also my opinion that you could withdraw the troops responsibly without leaving our allies' asses hanging in the wind, prey to what might happen from Turkey or indeed Assad. It's complicated, but my attitude is eternal war is not okay. The United States shouldn't be militarily active in the sovereign territory of other countries when those countries have not attacked us and are not likely to attack us. So that's my opinion. I acknowledge Brock's point to a degree that there are people on the left who do seem suddenly hawkish and keen to believe every single thing that the CIA says, I don't disagree or agree with that. I mean, sometimes you just have to be careful with, where you get your information and, assess it and compare it to whatever else is going on and see what's congruous and what isn't, simple as that. So there's that. I'm not a warmonger, and I absolutely think it doesn't really matter to me who the president is. If the president pulls troops out of a war zone that I don't think we should have been in the first place, I'm going to call that a good policy decision. So even though I think he did it for the wrong reasons, if it actually transpires to happen and that remains to be seen, I will be one of the first people to go, you know what, there you go. Trump did a good thing, and I can't stand that guy. He's one of the only people on earth that I can actually say I've ever hated. So there's that. I'm going to only touch on this briefly because this, again, could be another half-hour video by itself. But, Brock, like a lot of people on the political right, want to pretend that the focus on the Russia investigation and Robert Mueller and all that is Democrats having sour grapes and not wanting to take responsibility for losing the election in 2016. And I agree there's an element to that, but it's extremely fringe. I think there's some serious stuff going on as regards Trump's relationships with the Russians. And I don't believe that because I fall for the MSM, lines of what's going on, I don't really consume an awful lot of mainstream media directly anyway. I don't have a TV. I only read occasional articles here and there from mainstream sources. Most of the sources I get my media from are alternative sources and whatever else. But neither here nor there. My point basically is this. The mainstream media narrative that, Trump was in cahoots with the Russians before the election or that the Russians may have some kind of leverage over Trump. I think at this point is kind of self-evident, and whether or not they had sort of colluded to help Trump win the election is a separate question completely from what we already pretty much know. And like I say, I don't necessarily buy the media lines because I just believe what I see. And what I see is Trump changing the story 5 separate times on this whole Russia business. You know, first he's like, no, we never met the Russians. We never had any deals with the Russians. We never talked about deals with the Russians. Then it was, oh yeah, we talked to the Russians, but you know, it was only about adopting children. That's what the meetings were about. And it's, oh yeah, well, we were talking to the Russians, and it did include conversations about, you know, WikiLeaks and, you know, getting dirt on Hillary Clinton, but that's not collusion. You know, we never colluded. What we did wasn't really collusion. And now, well, if we did collude, it's not illegal. 5 fucking changes of story. You don't change your story 5 times if you're honest. You don't change your story at all if you're honest. So to me, it's self-evident from Trump's own behavior that there's definitely fire where there's a smoke. And there's an awful lot of smoke coming out of the Mueller investigation. 33 indictments, 5 guilty pleas already, and he hasn't even finished getting started. So, you know, spare me this whole, oh, it's just the Democrats having sour grapes and blah, blah, blah. No, there's real crimes being investigated. People are already admitting to being guilty. Okay? Enough said. Right. What else have I got written down here? Oh, yeah, you know, Brock wishes we could have more conversations about, you know, the ideas and the issues that we agree about and disagree about and so on. And I agree those conversations should take place, and I think they will take place, especially with the new Congress coming in. They're going to force an awful lot of conversations that pretty much have taken a backseat to all the Trump drama over the past 2 years. We haven't really had much of a chance to talk about too many policy issues that affect the American people because everything is fucking obsessed with Trump 24 hours a day on the American news media. That's the fault of the media, and that's a whole nother topic. Again, I can make another video about. But I want to get back to this issue of the wall. You know, Brock, like an awful lot of people on the right, seems to act as if Trump has some kind of major national mandate for the wall. Trump is only president because of the Electoral College. Let's be clear about that. Trump lost the popular vote by nearly 3 million people, right? More people didn't vote for Trump. That's not the case. More people voted for Hillary. That's the case. So don't act like Trump was the most popular person in the election. He wasn't. He just won because of an archaic quirk in our Constitution with, you know, giving the Electoral College gives smaller states a bigger say. You know, I'm from California. Someone from Wyoming their vote is worth 3.5 times what my vote is worth in California. That's just numbers. It's not my fault. You can blame the wise people back who founded the country. You know, the Electoral College might have made sense in the 18th century. I can't say. For the 20th century, I don't think it makes an awful lot of sense. Our country is big enough now to where we can absorb a popular vote just for the presidency. Maybe, you know, talk about other issues, but for the presidency, yeah, one person, one vote. Simple. Anyway, yeah, back to this wall business though. So there's no popular mandate for the wall. There never was. All right. Number 2, for Trump to be willing to shut down the government, and even though, you know, 25 to 30% of government workers are currently furloughed, not getting pay, and the rest still are, that's not an insignificant number of people. And those people are facing real hardship that is completely not their fault. It has nothing to do with their job performance or anything like that. It's more to do with Trump being obstinate and trying to do what dictators do, which is tell the legislature what they have to accomplish rather than do the seesaw action of politics. That's how politics is supposed to work. It's supposed to work like this. I want this thing that you don't want. You want this thing that I don't want. I'll tell you what, if you give me your vote for this thing, I'll give you my vote for that thing. That's how it used to work. That's how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be a matter of give and take, not we're going to try and meet everything in the middle and compromise on something that nobody wants. No, we're going to give you guys some of what you want. We're going to give you guys some of what you want. We're going to try to balance out, you know, the way it works. You know, to me, that's nonpartisanship. It's not saying we have to find some kind of middle ground. It's saying, look, we can trade here. I will trade you, you know, this deregulation policy if you'll trade me health care. You know, you vote for my health care bill, I'll vote for your banking deregulation. You know, that kind of thing. But that's not what happens. That's not, it's like our team's going to pull for this side, your team's going to pull for that side, and if you don't vote with our team, you're not on the team, and it's all fucked up, man. The whole point of politics was supposed to be an ebb and flow, back and forth, and it doesn't seem to work that way anymore, which I don't know if it ever can again. I think the fact that so much of Congress is corrupt now with corporate money. And until we solve that problem, almost all other problems will remain unsolvable. But again, that's a whole other video. I also want to dispense with this notion that Brock talked about, and a lot of people on the right keep on professing that they think Trump won some kind of landslide election. That's just simply not true. Like I said a moment ago, Hillary Clinton won 3 million more votes than Trump. So how can you call a minority win an election anyway, a landslide? And as far as the Electoral College is concerned, the margin of victory that Trump had in 2016 was only higher than one other Republican president since Nixon. And that's George Bush when he won the 2000 election by grace of the Supreme Court decision to stop counting actual votes in Florida. As we all know, Al Gore actually won those votes, but they stopped counting them, and the court approved that. So, water under the bridge now. What else have I got written down here? Oh yeah, last but not least, well, almost last but not least, toward the end of the video, Brock was going on about one of the things he finds most refreshing about Trump is that Trump is honest and doesn't have any spin to him. And I'm like, dude, you've got to be freaking kidding me. Trump does verifiable lies. I mean, it's not even open to debate. It's not even a matter of opinion. Trump is a dishonest president. He lies within the same sentence sometimes. It's unbelievable how much Trump lies. It's so easy to spot his lies that I don't even feel like I have to justify this statement. If you think that Donald Trump is honest and doesn't have any spin to him, you have so completely drank the Kool-Aid that I don't know if you can be helped or reached with reason. That's just my opinion. And now, definitely last but not least, Brock was complaining about the press toward the end of his video and talking about how the press aren't victims in all these situations and so on and so on. And whilst I agree that the press has an awful lot to answer for in terms of its relationship with politics in general and with the public as well, the level of political discourse and the dishonesty in the way they frame certain issues, yeah, there's an awful lot to unpack with the way the press works. Damn right, definitely. And most of that, in my opinion, is a direct result of the concentration of ownership that we now have with news media. Something like 90% of American news media is owned by just 6 different entities. And with that kind of concentration of ownership power comes concentration of control over the content that is put out. And these narratives align with each other, and it's not by accident. The ownership class is protecting their bottom line and using the news media as a vehicle through which to do that. So in that sense, the news media is not necessarily on the side of the people. In that sense, the news media is on its own side first, the corporate side. So there's that. Having said that, you got to cut the press some slack, and especially journalists. To say that, these people aren't victims is an insult to the more than 50 journalists who died in 2018 doing their job. Most famously Jamal Khashoggi. And, the problem that I see with the case of Jamal Khashoggi is directly Trump. And Trump is basically saying, hey, being a journalist is a dangerous job. And, Saudi Arabia, they might have done it, they might not have done it. It's just like, he's basically given a green light for dictators all over the world to do whatever the fuck they want to journalists. So, to say, the fake news, you can't feel sorry for them, blah, blah, blah. No, Trump's actually making it dangerous. We've already had someone try to bomb the CNN offices in New York in the past 12 months. So please, spare me this idea that the media is, is not in Trump's sights. The freedom of the press is directly threatened by things like the denial of justice for the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, for example. And the freedom of the press is extremely important. The press is the only institution, commercial institution, specifically mentioned in the Constitution. That's not by accident. And it's in the first fucking amendment. Again, not by accident. So press freedom is important. Press honesty is also important. Press integrity is extremely important. And we need to try to find a way to make the press more accountable and increase its integrity. And from my point of view, the only way to do that is the way we've already did it decades ago and have allowed to be reversed with deregulation. Because once upon a time, you couldn't have this kind of concentration of media ownership. Decades ago, it was specifically made illegal to do this kind of concentration of ownership for the exact reasons that are now problematic. So there, I've made a 20-minute long video and I really didn't want to. Sorry about that. I'm definitely done now. I'd like to hear your conversation in the comment section down below. I will be answering everybody who comments. And until next time, I want to thank you for joining me on The Breakfast Club. Until next time, peace.